Hi everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to talk about a format that we don't really talk about that much on the channel, and that is Vintage. And Vintage in paper is out of reach for 99% of people that play Magic because of the incredible cost of buying power. But on Magic Online, the cost of the cards are much cheaper, which leads to a pretty competitive format on Magic Online. So much so that Vintage is often the format of one of the Magic Online Championship Series playoffs. So if you're a Magic Online grinder like me, it's important to be at least reasonable at Vintage so you can play in these tournaments. So we're going to look at the metagame of Vintage. We're going to look at the top decks overall, specifically in 5-0s of leagues, in top 32s of challenges, and in 4-0s of prelims. So really this is kind of like a winner's metagame, but then we're going to look at even more of a winner's metagame and look at the metagame of the top 8 of the 2 challenges from the previous weekend. Let's do it. So this is the Vintage metagame from the previous week. As you can see, Doomsday is sitting at the top by a pretty wide margin, with a pretty big gap to Paradoxical Outcome, and then a small gap, and the third most popular deck is White Initiative by a very small margin. Let's look at what these decks actually do. The most popular deck, Doomsday, does its best to create a bunch of mana and then cast the card Doomsday. What Doomsday does is you pick 5 cards out of your deck, you pick the order of those cards, and then you make those 5 cards your deck, and then you exile the rest. Now the setup here is that you have the ability to draw a card with a card in your hand. This could be anything from Street Wraith to Brainstorm. And you stack the 5 cards of your deck with cards that draw themselves, so that you're able to have 1 or 0 cards left in your deck, preferably 0, in case Thassa's Oracle gets removed. And then you cast Thassa's Oracle, which says you win the game if your devotion to blue is equal to or more than the number of cards left in your deck. So if the cards left in your deck is 0, you win no matter what. If the cards left in your deck are 1 or 2 and you cast Thassa's Oracle and Thassa's Oracle does not get removed, then you win the game. The second most popular deck is Paradoxical Outcome, and there's a couple different versions of Paradoxical Outcome. But generally, you run all of the mana rocks that are really good. So all the 0 cost, all the 1 cost mana rocks, alongside Bolas's Citadel, and alongside a bunch of other restricted cards in Vintage. And then once you cast all these mana rocks, you use that mana to cast Paradoxical Outcome. You return all of your free and cheap mana rocks to your hand. You draw a card for all of those mana rocks, which often ends up being a ton, and hopefully into another Paradoxical Outcome, or at least cards to draw into Paradoxical Outcome, like Ponder and Brainstorm and Ancestral Recall and stuff like that. You replay all of those mana rocks for free or 1 mana, using the free mana rocks to play, and then you cast another Paradoxical Outcome. And you do this as many times as possible until you can cast a Bolas's Citadel, which you can often play cards for free off the top of your deck because many of the cards are free, with the goal of locking them out with the Time Vault Manifold Key combo, where you can take infinite turns and eventually actually killing your opponent with activations of Bolas's Citadel. And then the third most popular deck is the White Initiative deck. It was a force in Legacy, it's also a force in Vintage. What it does is it plays mana rocks and Chrome Moxes to ramp these really powerful initiative creatures out, along with Ancient Tomb, and protecting it with Cavern of Souls and whatnot. And then they cast White Plume Adventure, Seasoned Dungeoneer as your initiative creatures. And then classic Hate Bears cards like Thalia, Anointed Peacekeeper, Archon of Emeria, Solitude, and Chancellor of the Annex. It's kind of like a White Stompy deck. So understanding that those are the most popular decks overall of winning decks, let's look at the top 8 meta. The top 8 meta actually looks kind of like the overall meta, with at the top by quite a lot is the Doomsday deck, a large gap, and then pretty much everything else, littering top 8s. So Doomsday is seen as both the most popular deck and the most successful deck, at least from the data from this past week. If you like this video and want to see more videos like this, you should be sure to like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Let me know what you thought and anything I should add to these metagame videos. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description, especially on Twitch. I stream there most nights. I would really love to see you there. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.